Why this brings us to the Congress, I don't know, but it does. And the Congress, under the leadership of Chairman Fred Upton and Congresswoman Diana DeGette, has launched the 21st Century Cures Initiative to, and I'm quoting here, bridge the gap between the science of cures and the way the therapies are regulated. A dialogue has already been initiated between the committee and various stakeholders from the healthcare world. So in your view, how does this influence the regulatory barriers that the industry currently faces?
Well, I think it's beginning to take a whole body of work, and if I understand them correctly, their focus is around taking the early signals of discovery on into development and then ultimately into delivery, and creating an infrastructure and really facilitating what that infrastructure and discipline around that body of work need to look like. I think
we'll realize that you would use the word Congress and facilitating in the same sentence.
I did, and I think that the Congress does have a role in this, and I actually welcome the idea that folks are beginning to think about thoughtfully about what are we needing to do to take a system of development and take that system to a place where we're not looking at just the individual steps, but bringing thoughtful consideration to bringing technologies to this country. We've been viewed by the rest of the world as a leader in innovation, and I think it's a great place for us to be able to have that discipline and organization around that structure. Having said that, I only think that it's a portion of the dialogue that we need to be thinking through. So they're going to answer a certain set of questions about how do things come to the marketplace and ultimately become integrated into the delivery system. It'll really be up to the delivery system and to the other stakeholders to figure out how that ultimately gets used.
Do you predict personally an acceleration in the pace of innovation?
I think that that's going to be a case-by-case assessment. Ultimately, having a set of understandable rules will help folks to plan better. So I think we'll be in a better place no matter what, having thought through it and having a set of guidelines or rules or guidance so folks can know what the rules are versus you don't have quite enough evidence or we're not quite there yet. So adding some clarity I think will be a very valuable thing for folks.
At present, because of the current environment and whatever, do you think that the pharmaceutical companies are averse to investing in novel treatment approaches because of the risks involved, both regulatory and otherwise?
Well, I think that risk is there today, and I think that the risk that they're bearing largely on their own, if you're thinking about new developments, only become shared when they come into the marketplace. So I think as we think about what are the trade-offs that we're going to have to make by increased speed, more diligence, more organization, I look for the folks in the development world, whether it be pharma or test, to come back to us and begin to say, how do we think about sharing that risk and reimbursement strategy in a different way?
Well, how could you modify clinical design trials to speed up drug development if you were king?
Mm-hmm. Well,
or emperor,
right? Modify clinical trial with the
object of increasing the speed of drug development.
Mm-hmm. So I would say that would be an incomplete question for me. If I were to say speed up for development, and that's as far as we got, I'd say I think the folks in the development world would want to say speed up for coverage or FDA approval, and then coverage and reimbursement at an adequate rate might be. So when we get into, if we can expand the dialogue into that arena, I would say bring those stakeholders to the table earlier and figure out what the trial design needs to look like.
So if with the input from FDA, with the input from the third-party payers, with the input from the end users,
including the patients and the doctors.
Including patients, and the trials can be designed to give you the data you need without having to go back to the table and say, but you didn't give me this.
That's right, and wasting another X amount of years trying to get after things that could have been answered beforehand.